President Donald Trump is once again trying to turn Harvard into his presidential punching bag, but the courts are punching back. This week, after Trump issued yet another order to block the university from enrolling international students, Harvard rushed to court, as they've been doing. And in just 4 hours, a federal judge ruled in the school's favor and issued a temporary restraining order saying the president's directive would cause, quote, immediate and irreparable injury. But despite the loss, the administration shows no signs of easing up on Harvard. Education Secretary Linda McMahon admitted the university has taken steps to counter anti-Semitism on campus, but she gives the credit to Trump's policies.
I have seen progress at Columbia.
Have you seen progress
and
at
you know
Harvard?
why? I think we're seeing progress because we are putting these measures in place and we're saying we're putting teeth behind what we're looking at. I'm really happy to see what Harvard did. But I wonder if maybe they didn't get a little spur from our action.
Joining us now, Maya Jasnadov, Coolidge Professor of History at Harvard University, and Ankush Khardori, former federal prosecutor and senior writer for Political Magazine. Professor, I want to start with you because you're the first person I think that we've had from Harvard actually here. So when you're on campus, as you're talking to professors, as you're talking to the administration there, how are you guys taking this, and why do you think you are the tip of the spear for this administration?
Well, I think we're the tip of the spear because we're historically the oldest university in the U.S., one of the richest, and one of the most prestigious, not just in the U.S., but in the world. So, from a culture war perspective, I think there's a lot of reasons why the president and his war against the elites wants to target Harvard. I think that we experience it on campus as an unprecedented singling out of an institution of higher education as one of the president's enemies. And we view it as you said, the tip of the spear in a war against all of higher education in this country, which is a very dangerous thing that I think all citizens should be worried about.
Ankush, the president thinks that Harvard's just going to cave to all the pressure. Listen to what he had to say on Thursday.
All we want to do is see their list. There's no problem with that. This is anybody outside of our country, international students. Because when we see some of the people that we've been watching, we say, where do these people come from? How is that possible? No, we want to have foreign students come. We're very honored by it, but we want to see their list. Harvard didn't want to give us the list. They're going to be giving us the list now. I think they're starting to behave, actually, if you want to know the truth.
And so, Ankush, I should have been a little more specific about what the president was talking about. This is on the issue of foreign visas for foreign students to come to Harvard. But it's one more front in the war that the president has declared on Harvard University. I mean, what levers does the Trump administration still have at its disposal to keep going at Harvard? And does Harvard have a legal leg to stand on going forward?
Yeah, I mean, he's running out of levers, it seems, right? I mean, he's trying to now, obviously, block the arrival of international students. He's canceling contracts. He set in motion all these efforts to sort of harm the university on its most central sort of features. And legally, they're doing a pretty good job so far. These cases are still in their early stages. The central claim that Harvard is alleging is it's a First Amendment violation, that the administration is retaliating against them. And I think for the most part, they should prevail on those types of claims. Whether they will prevail, of course, is not entirely predictable. I think, in particular, the areas where there are sort of immigration implications, including like this proposed visa restriction. Courts tend to give the president more deference around immigration. We saw this during the first term at the Muslim ban, even though there were lots of questions about why that even came into existence. So, it's hard to predict how this will all shake out, but they're winning so far, but it's early stages still.
Professor, one of the things that has happened is Harvard is standing up while other schools are, some folks call it capitulating, some others say trying to navigate a complicated process. Have you been surprised by other universities like Columbia that have tried to figure out a different way to do this and maybe aren't standing as tough as Harvard is?
I'm certainly disappointed. I recognize, though, the very real financial impacts that these moves have. They have the potential to shut down research enterprises in life-saving areas of medical research, in all kinds of things that are really at the core of what universities are about. And so if you're faced with the choice of halting your activities, possibly laying off thousands of people, basically becoming something that is unrecognizable from what you're set up to do, and making some changes to your policies, I certainly understand why people are making those choices. But I am very disappointed. I mean, the analogy that comes to mind to me is that the government is holding a gun to institutions' heads, and they're saying, all right, you can, I'm going to shoot you, but if you don't want me to shoot you, then please hang yourself. And this is an absurd situation that universities have been put into. I'm glad that Harvard is standing up for the principles at stake and, frankly, for fundamental constitutional rights.
And for the other colleges, too, right? Because like you said, Harvard's the tip of the spear. If the administration, if any administration, is able to take on the oldest, the most prestigious, the richest school, then what chance do the others have?
Absolutely. If Harvard didn't do it, nobody was going to do it. And it's very uncertain to me, as Ankush just pointed out. We don't know how this is going to play out. Harvard, on the other side of this, may look really different from what it was at the beginning of this. But, if Harvard didn't do it, then we would be looking at, I think, a really big wipeout of universities and other institutions of civil society in what is clearly an authoritarian power grab by this administration.
Ankush, for weeks now, months now, we have been talking about what the professor is talking about, the administration's power grab in various aspects, and going after institutions of higher learning, particularly Harvard, is part of the authoritarian playbook. I guess where I'm going is he can do all these things, hammer away at Harvard, institute yet another Muslim ban, and force people to take him to court. But how concerned are you that when these cases all get to the Supreme Court, that the administration will probably win most of them?
I don't know how much of it they'll win. They'll probably win some, unclear how much. It is it's been a prominent trend of this administration, and it's been a problematic one. I would say, though, that I think it's important to distinguish, when we're talking about Trump's sort of revenge campaign or the use of the office for retaliatory purposes, there are all sorts of things that have come under that umbrella, including his attacks on law firms, including his reprisals against certain individuals like Chris Krebs. I think the universities are categorically distinct for a very important reason, which the professor touched on, which is that the effects of the administration's actions toward them don't just affect the university in the way that it would be local. The effects are localized on a law firm. They affect the whole country and the whole world because of how much research and other activities they do that most of us don't have to worry about or even think about, but they are the primary engines of innovation in a lot of areas in this country. And so we actually all have a stake in this. I went to Columbia, and Columbia's obviously come under this same sort of set of pressures, but it is categorically distinct. I think the stakes are higher.
Professor Maya Jasanoff and Ankush Khedori, thank you both.